Hey guys, are you a UX designer that is struggling to pass that whiteboard challenge? Or maybe you're trying to find the difference between a junior and a senior UX designer while taking these challenges. Well, in today's video, I'll be talking to a design hiring manager and also a super mentor at ADP List, Yu Jing, who has conducted many of these whiteboard challenges, and she's going to give you unique perspectives from the other side of the interview process. And hopefully this video is useful for those people that are trying to get better at whiteboard challenges and eventually land a UX design job.
Hi, my name is Yu Jing. So I'm currently a design manager in Japan, and I'm managing a team of designers. I also used to mentor UX designers on EDP list, like what Ted mentioned, and that was when I was a senior designer. And wanted to connect with the UX designers worldwide and provide them with the help that they need to kickstart their UX careers. A whiteboard challenge or like a whiteboard exercise is typically used as a way to litmus test the designer's design process and also critical thinking skills. So what it does, right, is it helps the hiring team to gauge how mature a candidate might be in how they apply their processes. And also it gives us some clues or indications on how they probably work or collaborate with people, and especially with people that they might not know. And most of these kind of whiteboard challenges are customized to meet the needs of the organization. And typically it features like a design brief, a design outcome, and also a presentation that is required from the candidate. Honestly, like what we look out for in a candidate or what is required, right, is very dependent on the state of the company and also the design team. For me, I've been mostly hiring UX designers throughout my career. So we typically look for generalists who can actually design research and also a little bit of like UI skills as well. It typically stems from understanding what the company needs in the first place. So that's like kind of categorized into a few categories. So we have the business requirements, the design related requirements, both hard and soft skills, right? For example, the current team might be very focused on uh, visual design, but they do not have someone who's strong in interaction design. So does this extra skill kind of complement the existing team structure? And then we also look at soft skills, right? Communication skills. Does the personality bring diversity into the group, or we have too much of like maybe type A's, and then it's very difficult for everyone to work together. Or yeah, so things like these are the requirements that would inform what we should look out for in a candidate. Typically, because we generally only hire UX designers, or at least we hire UX designers. So most of the time, the deliverables are quite simple. So you'll be given a design brief, and we will try to want to see how you do problem breakdown, because that is how you start with like how to address the brief in the first place. So we will want to see how you take a problem and try to break it down to its bits and pieces and try to do contextual inquiry that is important to form the context of the problem. Then using these information, right, the next deliverable that we'll see is how you would ideate solutions and how fast can you think of solutions that can address the problems. And we are also looking at how exploratory you might be in terms of how many ideas or how many variations of the ideas you can think of. Then using these kind of ideation and also the context that you've gotten, right? You can narrow down to user flows and wireframes, which are basically things that you want to focus on for the rest of the session. And these deliverables are usually indicated very clearly by the interviewing panel at the beginning of the challenge. Right. And in our past experiences, right, we place less emphasis on UI skills, especially when it comes to whiteboard challenge, because typically you only have 45 minutes to 1.5 hours. And it's insane to use the time to focus on UI and it's not really a good use of anyone's time as well. So we focus more on making sure that your design process is sound and you know how to justify the different design decisions that you make. So typically a design challenge, right, or whiteboarding challenge is only one part of a multi-part interview process, right? So depending on the requirements of the company, if a company values technical skills, they might place more importance on the design challenges outcome. And what you can see, right, is maybe the design challenge or the whiteboard challenge might appear as one of the first few rounds of a process, an interview process. Um, because that is when I think the interview process is quite linear. What it means is that if you don't pass the whiteboarding challenge, most likely you wouldn't pass the following rounds. So that would tell you how important technical skills is, or how important the outcome of a whiteboarding challenge is to the company, right? So additionally, from my experience so far, we typically try to invite 2 to 3 uh panelists or interviewers per design challenge so that we can get as diverse and qualitative assessment of a candidate as possible, because one person's observations might not be consistent with another, right? So this also helps the team to gauge whether the candidate will work well with the existing members of the team. So within just one challenge, you get to see the technical skills, you get to see how this person works under pressure, and you also get to see whether this person actually can collaborate well with the team. I think a lot of candidates, or most candidates, will forget that an interview process is a two-way thing. So it's very natural to think about it as, oh, I'm the person being interviewed. I can't ask many questions. But I would encourage candidates to be proactive in the interview process. So what they can do, right, is they can actually ask prior to the interview what they can expect from the design challenge. Like maybe like what might the format be, where might it be conducted, or what should the candidate prepare beforehand, so that like at least they can get some sense about how the whiteboard challenge is going to be like. And the answers from the hiring team or even HR should give some color as to what to expect for a whiteboard challenge. Um, the other thing that I think the candidates can do is really just research, right? Whiteboard challenges are not new, right? They have been around for many, many years. Um, then back then when Google's whiteboard challenges were one of the most viral items, it's always constantly talked about, right? And on YouTube, a lot of people are making content about Google's whiteboard challenges, about how to handle them, the context of the challenges and things like that. So there are actually many resources online that people can find as to how to prepare for whiteboard challenges. But so far, at least like based on my interview process, maybe because like we are also kind of interviewing in countries where UX design is not so mature, right? I haven't seen enough designers, especially junior ones, making use of those resources and actually prepare or spend time preparing for design challenges. Yeah. So being proactive in the interview process and also being proactive in researching beforehand might actually help a candidate in terms of like preparing for whiteboard challenges. I think I think like when it comes to handling the design challenge itself, right? Um, many candidates kind of treat the design challenge as an isolated event, or like it's just part of an interview process, which makes it very daunting for a lot of the candidates. But what I find useful for most candidates, right, is they should just treat it as like a design brief, as if you're doing it as part of your day-to-day job, right? You've got a design task from your PM, from your engineer, and this is the format that it comes in, right? And or it's a design project that your lecturer gave you and you receive it from school. So if you treat it as a design brief that you do every day, then your usual design skills should come in, your design knowledge should start flowing in, and you should make use of those things that you have already learned and practiced on a day-to-day basis. right? So as a designer, we all know the double diamond design process, and it's one of the most widely used framework for designers. It's also very highly picked by most boot camps, right? And it should always be the first tool or framework that you already understand and practice, even prior to doing any whiteboard challenges in the first place. So use that and practice because um you can't you can't prepare for the design challenges context because those contexts are customized to the needs of the organization unless you research a little bit about the company and then you get some context about the company. But there's not much point in trying to rote learn the actual design briefs and you get the actual challenge itself. It wouldn't help. So um if you're if you're using the double diamond design process, it will help you already in kickstarting how to even break down the design brief in the first place. So this is one of the pitfalls that I actually saw where they do a lot of research about how to handle whiteboard challenges and they know the structure of it. But the problem is the structure is very different from what they practice on a day-to-day basis. Right? The day-to-day design process might be something that is more simplified than the double diamond design process, for example. Right. But instead they use the double diamond design process within the design challenge itself, which makes them falter because they're not familiar with the concepts and also the justifications behind why each step is important within the double diamond design process. And that unfamiliarity will actually hinder them in terms of completing the design challenge, right? I would rather see a candidate use their day-to-day design process in terms of breaking down the brief and also solving the design brief during the whiteboard challenge. Because your own design process might help you a lot more because of familiarity and also because there are certain reasons as to why the design process worked for you in the first place, right? So the double diamond design process has like four steps. So you have discover, define, develop, and deliver. And for discover and define is mostly about the problem space, like understanding the problem space, scoping it to something that you that makes sense, and also what you want to focus on. And then for the develop and deliver is the solutioning phase. How would you want to approach the problem or solve the problem itself? Yeah. So why the diamond design process is something that is popular and also useful in design challenges is because like it's a very structured framework where to use within like the impossible time frame. What I can see where I see people falter is the not not being intentional in terms of which part of the process to be dropped because of the short time frame. Yeah. So we can split into the two parts, right? Which is like the problem space and the solution space. So in discover and define, you can ask contextual inquiries. What I don't see candidates ask is about most of the time it's about business objectives. For example, it's a very commonly missed point which actually can help in showing like design maturity. But most junior designers would forget to ask this point. What I've seen people paying too much attention on is they try at the defining stage, right? They pay too much attention on design artifacts and they are trying to make design artifacts look pretty. But instead they have wasted precious time that they can use to ask a lot more about the context because you just don't know the context, right? So for example, right, some candidates would insist on doing both user personas and user journey map, even though they are two different artifacts. But you're essentially repeating a lot of the common points in between user persona and journey map within the same session. But it is so ingrained in their mind that these are the steps they need to take so that it becomes it becomes more robotic, right? It's like I'm just following the steps of the design process because it's you have to do this thing, you have to do that thing, right? Um, then that is where we can see if this candidate is a junior or a senior candidate. Senior candidates typically don't do that. They know that it is impossible to do both at the same time. Choose one or don't do it at all. Just focus on making sure that the problem space is defined well and you narrow down to the problem space that you want to work with. We typically want to try to see how the candidate can brainstorm about multiple possible ideas to solve the problems. What we see, what we don't see often is candidates being able to evaluate the pros and cons of each idea. You might have a lot of ideas, but they forgot to communicate why they decide to choose idea number one, for example, to move forward. They don't make it intentional to communicate their decision making process. That's also a telltale sign for us to kind of differentiate who is more junior or more senior or someone who has no experience with like design challenges at all. Yeah. And at this point, right, you can start to consider UX metrics if you have the time, which you can connect back to the different objectives that you have discovered during the first part of the design process. Yeah. So so that's like how the framework can work within the whiteboard challenge. Um, and how you can intentionally drop some parts of the framework to make it work within the very short time frame. And it's okay to say that you're nervous, to be honest, right? And I think Tan mentioned a very good point just now, like during the earlier parts of our conversation, right? Which is you can actually ask questions to the panel. And that is true. Like the panel is normally there to help you in case you get stuck. And um it's typically, at least in our own hiring process, we do reiterate that point a lot during the entire whiteboard challenge where we're here to help you, we're here to help you. You can ask us questions. If you're stuck, we'll try to give you hints, we'll try to move you forward. So it's okay to be nervous and it's okay to sound out if you need help. For people who are not familiar with whiteboard challenges, right, they tend to be very quiet during the session. So I'm not talking about like personalities, right? Like introverts, extroverts. No, I'm talking about how you how you behave and how you communicate your thoughts within a session. So people who are not familiar, they they tend to they tend to go back to their comfortable seat where they will start to work on the brief by themselves, right? Especially if they are not familiar with a collaborative environment and they are typically working solo. That is the default state they will kind of regress into, which is something that we don't want to see in the whiteboard challenge, right? We in the whiteboard challenge we want to see if you can ask as many questions as possible and if you can engage the panel as much as possible. So it is important to be a bit more conscious about how much you're engaging the panel and making sure that you're involving them in your discussion, your your brainstorming and things like that, right? So that they are following you and your thought process at every step of the way. That said, it is not unfair to or it's fair or double negative. It's fair to ask for like 5 minutes or 10 minutes, right, to think about your own approach. Because some people do work better that way, but you cannot be thinking about your approach and working by yourself during the entire length of the session. That's a no-no, right? And yeah, then in whiteboard exercise, it's quite obvious when someone prefers working solo.
Yeah. One thing I've actually learned a lot from senior designers like yourself too is
Mm,
always note it down. Even when you're sharing your screen and talking with others, it's better to
mm,
get everyone think thinking about what you're thinking, kind of know what you're thinking about. So
mm,
getting the context, okay, I know this about the user. Write it down on a sticky
mm,
note. Write it down and just kind of have these points because even if you write them down and they're all kind of scrambled,
it kind of shows
Mhm.
where you're going because to be honest, the only one that knows what you're thinking is yourself. So you have to put it down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Actually, this is a good point because I think that is also something that we didn't talk about, right? Which is
Yeah, we didn't.
the pitfall. Yeah, which is there's a lot of times I see people like not taking down notes. And the whole board is empty. Then I'm just like, oh no, then what's going on in your head? How are we going to follow your thoughts? And then another thing that we didn't really talk about is like after the design challenge, there's a presentation. So there's many times I've seen candidates who didn't take down notes, right? The moment we go into the presentation part, they look at the board and then they are like, oh shit, I forgot what we talked about. And I didn't take notes about the context or the different things that were mentioned. And their presentation just falters because there's nothing to talk about. They can't talk about the context that they've gotten. They can't talk about the ideas. Maybe they can talk about ideas because that's the first thing they note down, maybe. But other than that, they can't talk about anything else. And yeah, that is also one of the common pitfalls. Yeah,
Yeah, it's always good to like write down notes and just kind of have the kind of like a map of
yeah.
where did you go to get to the decision you're at, right?
My advice would be if there is a specified tool that the team has mentioned, especially when you ask during the HR, the hiring, the maybe the phone screening process, or even like before the technical round or the design challenge round, you have asked before, and you know that this is the tool that the team is going to use. Spend some effort to go and like familiarize yourself with the tool. Right, it's not going to take too long. Most tools have a free trial, and that would prep you better for the session. Right, a lot of the candidates who only focuses on like using tools that they are familiar with, falter when they try to do the design challenge because they are not used to the tool that the company might be using, and it they don't realize that they actually are wasting a lot of precious time on trying to find resources or trying to find, oh, how do I draw a rectangle? Like this is a very common question that we get during our whiteboard challenge. So spend effort, show that you care about the interview process, and just yeah, just practice the tool, right? Um,
That goes along with
yeah, and
the
don't
preparation, right?
yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah. I've seen too many people not like just forgetting about this part and expect the panel to cater to your requirements. Not all panels are as nice, I guess. Um, but even for those who we cater to, right? Not every one of them also did well. Yeah, because um, I mean that goes back to like how familiar you are with your design process. That's all. Yeah. So tools actually doesn't really matter that much in the grand scheme of things. Yeah. I think for at least for me, one of the telltale signs for me myself, that I've experienced so far for candidates who are good or candidates who are standout candidates. And I think yeah, I remember that includes you as well. Is I stopped taking notes. Like I stopped taking notes on my side. Right. So, because, okay, typically when it comes to these kind of challenges, right, at the end of the day, you have an evaluation you need to submit, right? So, if I find myself stop taking notes and I'm actually engaged in the session and also the challenge that you're doing, that means that I am fully engaged and I know that like collaborating and working with you would be a pleasant experience. And I don't need to take notes to help this to write my evaluation later because I have no time to take notes because I'm fully engrossed in the session and I am part of your process. So that is what to me a standout candidate would be. Right. So if you notice maybe like within the call the person is starting to take notes, should probably try to engage the person a little bit. And make conversation about the design challenge, ask questions, and make sure that the person is fully engrossed within your design process. When I was doing take home assignments or when I was more familiar with them, I'm partial towards take home assignments. But after I've been in, I guess, like the hiring process and also the designing of like whiteboard challenges, I think I'm partial towards whiteboard challenges, mainly because it gives us so much information, real time information about candidate and also ourselves, like as a hiring people, hiring panel, um, that you just can't get with take home challenges.
So, thank you guys for watching until the end. I want to give a special thanks to Yu Jing, who was so nice, was able to sit down and share her perspectives as a design hiring manager. So, getting her insights was tremendous. And I hope someone out there watches this video and gets a little bit of value from it to apply in their next whiteboard challenge and eventually land that UX design job. Again, I'll try to post more videos in the future. I just started a new job, but I will try to post as much as I can to make these videos for you guys. I really enjoy it and I really want to give back to the community and I really want to help someone out there. So subscribe if you want to see more. Comment in the comment section if you have any questions related to design or anything else. So until next time, guys, thank you guys for watching again and peace out. Bye. See ya.